Hello, welcome to Electric Vehicles 101. My name is Diana McKeown. I am one of the Clean Energy Resource Team's co-directors, and I'm happy here to be here talking about electric vehicles in Greater Minnesota and the basics. So here is today's agenda. We're going to focus on some of the basics about electric vehicles or EVs, talk a bit about the difference driving electric in Greater Minnesota, and share some resources that will be helpful to you in making your decision. So let's start with the vehicle basics. So there are two types of plug-in electric vehicles. So the ones in the box are what we consider electric vehicles. The one on the very left-hand side is battery electric vehicle or EV or BEV. That is a full electric vehicle. It has no gas tank. So that is a full electric vehicle. And then next to that is the PHEV or the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. And you can see it's half and half. It does have an electric motor, combustion engine, but it has a gas tank and you can refuel it, charge it at gas stations and go as far as you could with a gas vehicle. The vehicle outside the box, the hybrid electric vehicle, HEV, is the early Priuses that were electric, but we are not talking about those kinds of vehicles as we talk about electric vehicles here in this presentation. So first, just know that there are, electric vehicles have come a long way. There's hundreds of varieties to choose from, all different kinds. And there's progress being made constantly. The average range currently for new electric vehicles, their battery range is about 275 miles. Most Americans drive somewhere around 40 miles a day, so probably meets most of your needs for most households. And there are a number of vehicles that are priced around the same price as regular passenger gas vehicles in the US. There are multiple benefits of driving electric vehicles, so we're just going to focus on a couple. First, the emissions. It's a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, and there are significant health benefits, in particular related to premature deaths and asthma. And there is much lower cost both with the fuel and maintenance for electric vehicles. I do want to note that maintenance is harder to come by in Greater Minnesota. So just be aware of that. This is a tool that you can use as you're considering electric vehicle to figure out what will the fuel savings and fuel maintenance be. So here's a QR code. You can go to this calculator and find plug in your information and see how much money you'll save. This is on the Drive Electric Minnesota website. So now I'm going to switch gears a bit, switch gears, and talk about electric vehicle charging. So there's a couple different kinds of chargers. You've probably heard of level one, that is basically plugging into a regular wall outlet. The electric vehicles come with a cord that you can plug into your regular socket. It's a much smaller charging that happens with that, 2 to 5, around 4 miles are added per hour. It's a really great option for those plug-in hybrids that have a smaller battery, usually somewhere between 25 and 50 mile battery. That's a great option for those vehicles. And you can plug it right into your existing wall outlet in your garage. Secondly, probably the most common type of EV charger is the level two. And so that is a 240 volt charger going into that outlet, just like your dryer. So similar to that. And so if you have a 240 volt uh, plug outlet in your garage, then you can just plug into that. This is my car. I have a charging cord that can plug into the 240 outlet that's in my garage. I didn't need to buy a charger. Some people will or want to buy a charger. So there's costs involved in getting the electric wiring to your garage if you don't have that, buying the charger if you need to buy that. but it is a much faster way to charge. And is pretty common for folks that solely drive an electric vehicle as their household vehicle. Also, I want to, make sure that, people are really thinking about that when they put those in. They're, whether it's what's going to work best for them, the outlet or the level two charging. And then now we'll switch to the third kind of charging, which is DC fast charging or DCFC, sometimes referred to as level three. These are the kinds of chargers you're going to find at commercial installations, etc. It's a much faster way of charging. There's a couple of different plugs. So the first one here to the left is the CHAdeMO that is used mostly by Asian vehicles here in the US. It is slowly transitioning to a different kind of vehicle because or charger because that one is less used. The one in the middle is the CCS, used mostly by American and European markets, certain Asian EVs that is more common than the CHAdeMO. And then, of course, on the right-hand side, the NACS plug or Tesla, used for the Tesla superchargers. That is, there's an incredible network of Tesla chargers, and they are slowly opening up to allow for other vehicles to have adapters to use that system. That is going to be a game changer for charging in the US. Um, Also, I just want to say it's really important to consider looking at the incentives that are out there for level two and level three or DC fast chargers. Check with your city, your state, your utility to see if there are incentives for that. And again, Drive Electric Minnesota has some great information on that. So, with regards to charging stations in Minnesota, we have quite a few. There's over 2,500 ports to charge your electric vehicle. Many of those are the level two chargers. Um, Generally, you'll find some redundancy at a charging station where they have maybe some DC fast chargers and some level twos. So in case somebody's using one, or if one of them is down, there's some other options. They're continuing to be deployed all across the state. Some of the newer or the older ones are, looking at being repowered because aren't as fast as some of the newer ones, and they've been having some issues. So we're seeing some of those being repowered. And obviously is a much higher concentration in the Twin Cities region, but there are charging stations all across the state. And this QR code, you can check into that if you really want to nerd out on electric vehicle charging. The EV dashboard has both a deep dive on charging and on vehicles, so you can, go look at it to your heart's content. So electric vehicle batteries are really important. They have a big impact on the vehicle. There have been improvements. We continue to see improvements. The batteries get bigger and lighter, which then makes the cars go longer, have a longer range. So that continues to happen. We are seeing the cost declining as, as in any technology, as you go along that adoption curve, they're declining. Emissions are reducing. There's just a lot of lots of changes happening very quickly in the electric vehicle battery space. But there's more information on the Energy Information Administration website. All right, we're going to switch gears to electric vehicles in Greater Minnesota specifically. It's important to think a little bit deeper about buying an electric vehicle if you live in Greater Minnesota and how you drive and what your lifestyle is. First thing I want to say is that a hybrid plug-in vehicle is always an option for any household because again, it has that battery backup. And so when, anytime we're buying a vehicle, we think about, our driving patterns. What kinds of things do we want a sporty vehicle or, how important is price? How important is gas mileage? There's lots of different questions that we ask ourselves. And, along with that, there's many different electric vehicle options that fit the needs of families. But again, that hybrid plug-in vehicle that has a gas backup is appropriate for any household, no matter where you live. All right, so important considerations when you're driving electric in Greater Minnesota. Here's a number of questions that you want to ask yourself. Again, reminder, big difference between level 2 and DC fast charging. You can get some pretty fast refill, if you will, of your battery with a DC fast charger. You might not find them everywhere. And if you're going on a trip in Greater Minnesota and you're going to stop for lunch or stop for shopping, a level 2 charger might work just as well for you. So really be thinking about your trip and where you're going and when you're going to stop and all of those questions. And this is the PlugShare map. This is probably the most widely used source for electric vehicle chargers for electric vehicle drivers like myself and others. This is something that you can it even has a place where you, excuse me, can trip plan. So you can look at putting that in and planning the trip here as well. And also most vehicles, electric vehicles, have built-in navigation to get to a charger. So make sure to look in your owner's manual for how to, access the navigator to get you to an electric vehicle charging station. So, Minnesotans love electric vehicles all over the state. We were excited even to host a wintertime electric vehicle ride and drive in Ely, Minnesota, in February 2024. It was the first wintertime ride and drive in the nation. We were super excited about it. You can read more and see more about that event there. But we think it's really important for people to understand that you can ride and drive electric vehicles all across the state of Minnesota, even in the wintertime. So going to move to a couple of last resources. When you're thinking about purchasing an electric vehicle, there are a number of resources. I can't say this enough. First stop, your electric utility. So many of them have rebates for electric vehicles, for the chargers, they have programs for EV. Some even have them for vehicles. So please visit your electric utility before you purchase, because you could end up purchasing an electric charger at the dealership that doesn't qualify for your utility program. That would be a mistake because you might lose out on money, and we all like money. So make sure you do that. You can go to mncharging.org and enter in your utility information and find out about those charging rebates and charging programs that they have. Additionally, here's a couple of tools that you can use if you want to find out, what are the life cycle costs? Because of course, what's really important in looking at those costs and thinking about a vehicle is looking at the lifetime costs. Looking at just the purchase price is not a fair assessment, because the difference in an electric vehicle is the savings is in the fuel and maintenance. So it's important to look more holistically at the vehicle that you're purchasing and the costs of it beyond just that purchasing price. So there's a tool here that will help you do that. And then secondly, there's a tool that will help you figure out how much will your electricity bill go up once you get an electric vehicle. I was really curious about that too. So you can go in here and put in a few numbers and really understand what is that electric bill going to look like after you purchase your electric vehicle. The really last big resource, there's lots of resources out there, but of course, Drive Electric Minnesota is a entity devoted specifically to driving electric in Minnesota. It is facilitated by the Great Plains Institute, which is one of the 4 CERTS partners. Tons of resources, and they connect you to different websites and things, so you can, just one-stop shop there at the driveelectricminnesota.org site and get you information for other questions you have about electric vehicles. And then I really want to highlight this one particular resource on the Drive Electric Minnesota site. There's a ride and drive toolkit. There is no better way to help people understand electric vehicles than getting in and riding one, driving one, talking to owners. So these electric vehicle ride and drives, or EV ride and drives, are an important tool in helping educate and helping people across the state understand what an electric car might mean for their life. So check that out if you want to host one in your neck of the woods. And I just want to say thank you so much for listening. We are so happy to be here to provide some information for folks. Please feel free to reach out to me, Diana, at the CERTS team, or any of our staff. We are here to help. So go forward and drive electric. Thank you so much.